Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The decision by Raila Odinga and the Azimio team to skip the national prayer breakfast was highly criticized by Kenyans from different sides of this part of this country, by different leaders. But I think at the end of it, we have all confirmed that indeed what they said, that the event is going to be riddled by politics of personality and name calling, has come true. And I watched that event. I followed it through in the TV for close to 1 hour, and I did not manage then to listen to the other speeches, but I managed to listen to until Sabina Chege was called to speak. And the intention was to play the vitriol politics against the opposition politics. And I paid a close attention to what exactly was going on there. If you ask me, a national prayer breakfast, I do believe that though it is organized by the parliament, but it should be presided over by the members of the clergy. And I don't know what happened, because it turned out as a meeting of leaders coming out to speak and to do some publicity stunts with some few Bible verses. I think that national prayer breakfast has lost its meaning, if it is something to go by. Now, I want us to look at the guilt speech by Sabina Chege. But before that, there is an explanation that I know I've just got this evening. That report has been really going around in the WhatsApp groups. Did you realize that Kimani Chungwa was not given time to acknowledge the members of parliament that attended it? So, in the corridors, they're saying that there are quite a number that were there, and in the plan, you're supposed to make a speech and actually acknowledge, and if not him, then the speaker, to acknowledge the members of parliament, speak on behalf of the members of parliament and acknowledge their presence. And then the Senate counterpart was also supposed to make a speech and then acknowledge the rest. But that did not happen. The reason being is quite a number of UDA members of parliament skipped that event, despite the fact that they were actually formally invited. And with then the information could be that they were really avoiding a public appearance with President William Ruto, or being close to the president, because those are normally the opportunities where you will be caged, you will be called and told, follow me, let's go to the State House and this and that. Then it would be used for smoothing. So, but apart from that, this is the speech by Sabina Chege. And I want you to pay close attention, because that's what I've grabbed from the whole of it. I've grabbed this to show what exactly was her tone and the message to the tail end of her speech.
The will of God. It is us who handed over the power, and so it is necessary that we support the government of the day, not for ourselves, but for the betterment of Kenya. And so, on the same tone of reconciliation, I pray to my colleagues in Parliament that they also reconcile with me, because the best thing I did was not to run away from them, but just think bigger picture about Kenya. And so, Mr. Speaker, as they plan to remove me as a Deputy Minority Whip, I hope that you'll also look at me with a better eye, and I also extend the same branch to my colleagues in Azimio, because there's nothing wrong I've done. The only thing I've done is to think about Kenya first and not myself. And hopefully that Kenya is going to rise. There are many challenges, Your Excellency. What I can promise you is that we will not wait to see Kenya go down, but each one of us will try our best to contribute in the little way we can be able to do.
Now, for those who are keen on analyzing speeches, you'll agree with me that in that speech, she's sounding conflicted, and especially in our decision to cross over and support, or rather to work with William Ruto, because yes, as of the standing order, it is by law, it's morally right that you cannot hold an opposition office if you've crossed over to work with the ruling coalition. Then the effectiveness of that office, you cannot play the role of that office. I don't know, how can you be a chief whip to the side of the Ozimio if you're working with Kenya Kwanza? It doesn't really make sense. And on that one, I've always said she deserved it. Looking at how she's speaking, internal guilt is eating her. She was at one point to become the DP to Raila. And Raila then opted for Martha Karua. And I think Raila made a very good decision, because I can tell you, whether Sabina Chege was to become, if Sabina Chege could be Raila Odinga's deputy, and then by that time, after election goes the way to end, how do you think it would have deflated the Azimio ticket, or rather Azimio camp, if the one who was designated deputy president crosses over to work with the ruling coalition? It's something that it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think she's become the DP. I think apart from that, she was also to become a deputy governor candidate to Sakaja in Nairobi, but that never happened. From her speech, you can trace internal guilt because of the following. And that is what I want us to look at. I do believe that even though Sabina Chege is not wrong, she's just within her rights as a person and as a politician and as a constitutional right to choose who and which political formation to associate with. But then that does not mean that the law is suspended. And that is why it is clearly that if you have to change your mind, then just leave those positions to work with the other party. But that be said, it is also morally wrong to lead an onslaught against Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think the intention of the attacks, or rather a plot to dethrone Uhuru Kenyatta at the helm of the Jubilee Party, is backlashing on them. And if you look at even those who don't support William Ruto, even those who don't support Uhuru Kenyatta, have been milling in the comment section and have been telling off Sabina Chege and Kanini Kega that what they were doing is actually disrespect to the former president. And I remember analyzing here the speech by Betty Maina, somewhere in Muranga, saying that President Ruto also fell out with Gideon Moi. But now that he's in power, there is no bad blood between him and Gideon Moi, and we are not seeing members of people from the Rift Valley name calling Gideon Moi for what exactly has happened. And Betty Maina was putting to task Sabina Chege and Kanini Kega that they need to think twice about this. I've seen a plan to host another, for the Sabina Chege faction to host an NDC on July 22nd. I think they gazetted that. We are really waiting for what that means or how that is going to play out. And so one of the reasons, or the first reason why she's having, or rather she's walking in guilt, is because of the backlash on Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta was like an elder and is like now a political father to them. In the same thing that was done by those other young juvenile politicians against Uhuru Kenyatta before the latest election, they are now being used to perpetuate the same narrative and the same plot against Uhuru Kenyatta. The other thing that I can also see clearly is the intention was to make sure that they hold grip of the ground. But looking at even the finance bill and listening to the people, both from the Mountain, Rift Valley, and the rest of the country, the general understanding is that things are not going on right. And those who have been saying they made a good decision to support William Ruto because that is where Kenya first. We also have a constitution that allows someone in the minority to put government on check. So we should not, and I think the leaders that work with government normally misconstruct a narrative here that I am supporting the government of the day. And according to them, interpretation of supporting government of the day is working with the ruling coalition. You can still support William Ruto by being a very staunch opposition MP. And himself, he has said that he wants accountability and he wants vibrant opposition. But even after him saying the other side of the mouth, people still fall for the trap of crossing over to work with the administration. There is a, there is a very interesting going on in this country. There is an interesting poll going on, a debate going on in this country about buying bloggers. Well, Pauline Njoroge is saying that Silas Jakakimbo was sent by some around to allow for him to be given 500,000 per month so that he could be blogging for the government of the day. I don't know if that is monthly or is something that was one off. But at least it's normally just a trap for you to come in, and after you join, you're given that 1 second month. Then for that, when you're inside, it will be changed. But that tells you that the deal has been good for those Azimio team. And Sabina Chege is working guilty because what they thought was heaven and was going to change has turned out not to be one of the best things. And I want to tell you, that's why President William Ruto started very early to capture these members of parliament from the minority side, because he knew that hapa mbele, if you want to convince an MP now to jump now, it's very difficult, because that MP can go away that, am I with the people or I'm going to sit with the leaders? I think UDA could not defend her to retain that chief whip position. She never saw, and that is a very lucrative seat. It has some packages, and a better package than other members of parliament. And when he was told that these people, there is nothing they can do, and in the fullness of time, you're not going to leave your position. And I do honestly believe that that's a bit of my take why she is looking conflicted, even making that guilt speech. That's my take.